Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
Let's sit down and make an actual plan, and we have definitely got to factor in that retirement danger zone. I wish to God someone had sat down and done that with my dad. We wish we would have known about these things.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want. You've got an 87% chance of success. Well, son, that's a 13% chance of failure.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
Welcome into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Glad to have you with us alongside the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary, Mr. Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin. We hope you're having a great day. And of course, we thank you so much for joining us each and every week here on the program. And boy, oh boy, we've got a lot to cover on the show here today. Coming up in just a few moments, Tim's going to tell you how often someone approaching retirement should really put their portfolio under the microscope. Plus, we're going to give you the price of procrastination when it comes to your financial planning. We'll get to that and much, much more. And of course, we'll have our Safe Money story of the week. You know we do that each and every week. But first things first, let's say hello to the man of the hour, the star of the show, and my good buddy, Mr. Tim Wood. Tim, I hope you are doing well today, my friend.
I am. I hope you are doing well, and I hope everyone out there listening is doing well with all the crazy news every day. I mean, you never know what we're going to hear. Yeah, I hope everyone's doing well and getting through. That's pretty much kind of sometimes all we can do right now.
I'm trying to get through pollen season. I know you're trying to get through sinus infection season, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I am.
We're both playing a little hurt.
Soldiering through today, yes.
We'll get through this together, I promise, my friend. We'll make it happen. Real quick, before we dive into, I know we like to talk a little sports on the show. You and I just talking off air. We both enjoyed the Masters this past weekend. What an entertaining day. And I know my wife's favorite player won, and it sounds like Rory's your favorite player as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah, I like Rory. That other guy, though, Cam Young, I'll tell you, I really liked his swing. Mm-hmm. He's got that little pause at the very top of his swing. Now, we're talking golf here, and there's some people probably listening that don't even watch golf. But I like that little pause because it kind of gives you just a millisecond just to make sure I think I'm going to actually try to emulate that myself. I like that a lot.
I like it. I'm a Max Homa guy. As I told you about a year ago, I got a chance to take my son Max to the Masters last year, which was just an incredible experience taking a 9-year-old son with you. He actually got a golf ball from Max Homa when he went over and wished him well, tossed it right out of his pocket. So I told him on social media, no matter what that guy does the rest of his life, I will be watching the leaderboard, and I think he finished in the top 10. So I was following Max Homa, probably not a household name for most of our listeners.
No, probably not. And actually, I would say if I had to pick one favorite, my favorite is actually Morikawa.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know who that is either, but he's young. He's still got a long way to go, but I really like his game too, and I like him personally.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was a fun Masters. The worst part about it is it's 51 weeks till it comes around again. I know we're all looking forward to the rite of passage every spring at Augusta National. Maybe you and I can take it in one of these years. How's that sound? We'll
Absolutely.
Take the show on the road one of these years.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
See what we can work out here as we move forward. In the meantime, we've got a lot of financial topics to get into on the program here today. And Tim, I know that this is probably something you experience quite often with your clients. One of the biggest fears in retirement is a market downturn. Matter of fact, we've seen all kinds of things with the markets here lately. Obviously, it can force retirees to sell investments at a loss or even, probably just try to cover their living expenses. But when the market does rebound, those gains we know are gone. Something called sequence of returns risk. And financial author Jamie Hopkins recently told Morningstar there's one way to guard against that sequence of returns risk. Take a listen.
That's not super complicated, but I still see retirees sometimes retiring with really high concentrations in just a couple stocks because they were growth vehicles and they allowed them to accumulate wealth, but that might not be the right vehicle to get through retirement. Wealth generation strategies and wealth preservation strategies is what we're talking about now are different things. So a more diversified portfolio, both among equities and across different asset classes, is really important because because it gives us flexibility on being able to sell things at different time periods based off of how they're performing.
All right, so Tim, the question becomes, how often do you personally recommend that someone approaching retirement really, does that deep dive, puts that portfolio under the diversification microscope, if you will?
Well, I would say at least every 5 years, but really when there's a major change in rates. So, for example, if someone did a plan back in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, when the rates were really low, well, our rate structure now is sometimes 2 to even 3 times what it was back then. Mm-hmm. So, and where we are now, if we look forward, it may be totally different 5 years from now. So essentially what you need to do is you just need to get with someone, and that's why I do annual reviews with all of my clients, because we want to make sure if there's any major changes that have happened, and we look and see where all of your stuff is, and if there's any major changes in interest rates and inflation, in a bunch of different things, if there's any things that we need to tweak to make sure we're still heading in the right direction, we can do that. Just real quick to go back, sequence of returns risk. People that have read my book know that's exactly what happened to my dad. That's exactly what happened to my dad. If y'all have read my book, he lost over 75% of his retirement in the first 4 years he was retired. Why? Sequence of returns risk. I've got a whole chart in my book explaining exactly what happened. He retired in 2000. Here's what happened. Plus, he was taking money out at the same time while the market was going down. And you heard Jamie talking about diversification. Well, my dad only had one stock. His retirement plan was one stock, which was the company stock. Well, that company stock absolutely just took a dive while at the same time he was taking income out because he had retired. That put him into the death spiral, and that put him back to work for almost a decade.
Wow.
So, yeah, I see that happen quite often, and people don't realize how it's amazing. If you want to really do something that will blow your mind, and you can just do this on Google. Look at the difference if something happens in the first 3 years of your retirement in the market. How is that going to affect you versus if something happened, say, at year 10 in your retirement? Completely different story. The same exact things could happen, but if it happens in the first few years, the difference in what you would have compared to if it happened later, it's night and day, and that's what I talk about in my book too. So yeah, it's a huge thing that people need to look at, and especially when you're moving into retirement. What Jamie said makes perfect sense when you're still in that acquisition phase. You still want to be diversified in a bunch of different things so you can move quickly and react and do things. Again, once you're approaching retirement, or especially once you're in retirement, you want to make sure that you don't have any losses at all. So it's kind of a different, it's like you and I talk about every week. It's that transition from acquisition, and growth, and let's get it as big as we possibly can, to now it's time to use it. It's making that switch. And that's when you've really got to go from, let's try not to lose any to we can't lose any. And that's, like I said, that's what happened to my dad, was sequence of returns risk.
I'm curious, too, because, again, you do this day in and day out. How often do you find that maybe you sit down with somebody and they think they're diversified, but, you start peeling back the layers of that onion, realize, hey, you know what? They are very much still exposed to potential market downturns when all's said and done.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Because they think they're diversified because I've got 30% in tech, I've got 20% in telecom, however they've got it, doesn't matter. They think that's diversified, which in a way it is, but the problem is that's all diversified and everything is still 100% at risk.
Right.
You're not diversifying away from the risk, you're just diversifying what different risky things you have. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? So that's what we're talking about, is we're talking about once you're approaching retirement, that mindset needs to shift somewhat. And it's in my book, and y'all have heard me talk about it. What I usually use as a general rough point of view is what your age is. So if you were 55, about 55% or so of your total retirement nest egg should be in something protected from a market event. 65, 65%, 75, 75%. That's rough, but if you go with that kind of a number, that way, if a major market event happens, if the market were to go down 30% in the next month, if you're 55 and you've got over half of your money protected, half of your money, you're not having to worry about losing 30%.
Right.
Because again, as we've talked about before, let's go real quick to market math. We've talked about this a bunch of times. If you lose 30%, people are like, oh, well, that's no big deal. It'll come back 30%. You got to have between 42 and 43% growth just to get back to where you were with a 30% loss. I mean, real numbers, 100,000 goes to 70. And if you go 30 up from 70, that only takes you back to 91. You got to go up 41 to 42% to get back to the 100. So, making that switch is really the big deal, and making sure that you're prepared for the sequence of returns risk, and understanding that it's not diversification isn't diversifying in the exact type of stocks that you've got. It's diversifying in the actual investment vehicles that you're in, and what their risk, their overall risk to the market, to the sequence of returns, to all these different things. Getting away from that is what you're really trying to diversify once you get closer to retirement.
Well, if you are approaching your own retirement, maybe it's been a while since you put that portfolio under the microscope. Maybe you're hearing about sequence of returns risk and it's got you a little concerned. You want to sit down with somebody who does this day in and day out. Well, that's exactly why Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they're standing by to get you on his calendar right now. Again, Tim, the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. And if you'd like to learn more, there's no cost, there's no obligation. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233 or online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. And don't forget, when you do call, when you get on Tim's calendar, ask for a copy of his book. He mentioned it just moments ago. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, let's get you one today. Again, you can visit safemoneyretirement.com to learn more.
It's now time for our Safe Money Story of the Week. Visit SafeMoneyStories.com to view more.
For this week's Safe Money Story of the Week, I'm actually going to go to something that's quite personal, and y'all heard me talk about just a minute ago, and that's going a little deeper with the story of my dad. People that have read my book know more about this story, but those of you that haven't read my book, my dad worked for a company his entire life for the most part, became a manager over most of the state of Florida, was very successful. I'm not supposed to say what company it is, but I can tell you 90+% of the people listening, you've got some of their product in your cupboard right now. Probably everybody, but I want to say 90+%. He was one of the managers for the whole state of Florida. Well, their retirement plan was what I call a retirement plan of one. In other words, all they offered was company stock. Now, they gave him a good discount on it, and there was, a certain percentage that they matched. It was a good deal, but it was just that one company stock. Well, what happened? Sequence of returns risk is what happened to him. He retired in 2000. If y'all don't remember what happened in 2000, which I'm sure most of the people listening do, go back and look at what happened in the market between 2000 and 2004. Well, he retired in 2000. At the same time, because you're supposed to start taking out the conventional wisdom, especially back then, was you take out 4%. That's what you live on. And then hopefully it grows and offsets the 4% and you're fine. Well, that didn't happen. That stock that he had from that company it actually went way down. It went down 82 or 83% in those 4 years, while at the same time he was taking money out. So anyway, his overall retirement money went down 75% in the first 4 years, and he had to go back to work. So I know this is a little different story of the week, but what I'd like to say is, what could he have done? If I had been, if 26 years ago I had been in a position that I am now to understand how these things work, what could I have done for him? We could have moved, as soon as he retired, we knew he needed income. And we knew him and mom were going to need a certain amount of income for the rest of their lives. So we would have moved them out of that plan of one before the crash happened, because he retired right before the crash happened. We would have moved him out of that, liquidated that, and put all of that into one of these guaranteed lifetime income plans. And that would still be paying, even though my father has passed, that would still be paying my mom to this day. So that's exactly it. And I mean, and Dad and I talked about it a lot over the years once I finally got into this business that, man, I sure wish you would have known about this. And I said, yeah, I sure wish I would have too. Because they still lived okay lives. I mean, they never struggled. They were never in food lines or any of that stuff. They were fine. But they certainly did not live the life that they could have or should have, just simply because he didn't know, you know. So that's what we would have done, is we would have made sure they had enough guaranteed income. We probably also would have gotten them a couple of smaller inflation buster plans that they may just be turning on now, because inflation is still a problem. If y'all haven't noticed, stuff is still getting more expensive every freaking day. That would have been what we would have done. And then anything extra on top of that, we would just put into a growth with no losses plan. That would have made a massive difference in their lives. It would have made a massive difference in where they retired to, the retirement community they were in. Everything in their lives would have been different if we would have known about that. Unfortunately, we didn't, but you do. So if you're listening, and if you were in a situation where you're approaching retirement and all of your retirement money is still at risk, you need to sit down with a certified financial fiduciary, look at what your options are, figure out what you need, and get yourself into guaranteed plans so that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, obviously, unfortunately, Tim, your story is not a one-off. There's a lot of folks that have experienced something very similar. And if you are looking to avoid ending up in a similar predicament when it comes to your retirement and you'd like to start planning now for your future, remember, folks, it's never too early to start putting a plan in place. And it all begins with one phone call to Tim Wood, founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. You want to learn more? You want to get on his calendar? Again, there's no cost. There's no obligation. And matter of fact, for our first 5 callers today, we're going to get you a complimentary copy of Tim's book. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. So don't delay, folks. Be one of our first 5 callers right now. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233 or online anytime. SafeMoneyRetirement.com is the website. Again, it's SafeMoneyRetirement.com. All right, we'll give you a couple of minutes to make that call. Get yourself on Tim's calendar. Pick up a copy of his book as well, and we'll continue with much more of this week's Safe Money Retirement Show, powered by SafeMoneyRetirement.com, right after this.
Hi, it's Glenn Beck. You've heard me talk about Tim Wood, certified financial fiduciary and owner of Safe Money Retirement for a while now. But what I haven't told you is that he's also a retirement income certified professional. Now, why should you care? Well, maybe you have pre-tax and after-tax retirement accounts, and you need to know how that's going to work. Or maybe you still don't have enough guaranteed lifetime income to cover your monthly bills. Or maybe your entire savings is still exposed to risk. Listen, I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that his team can help you. I want you to write this down, safemoneyretirement.com/Beck. Or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation, free 15-minute discovery call with Tim. You know I don't trust just anyone. So do your own homework on Tim Wood at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and request a copy of his best-selling book. 800-913-SAFE. safemoneyretirement.com/Beck. Get started today.
Thanks as always for joining us here on the Safe Money Retirement Show alongside Tim Wood. You know him. You hear him every week here on the show. He's the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. My name's Kevin McAlpin. Hope you're having a great day so far. And of course, we thank you so much for making this show part of your routine. And don't forget, set a reminder. We're here with you every single week, same time, same station, talking all things retirement, helping you put that foundation in place. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about any of the topics we cover, you can always reach Tim right there on his website. It's safemoneyretirement.com. Again, safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, this one made me laugh. A story that came out recently about how much time, on average, we spend in the car looking for a parking space. Get this. A new study found that 66% of city drivers will spend up to 15 minutes looking for that perfect parking spot. Now, another 15% say it could take 30 minutes or longer, which to me is just a head scratcher in and of itself. But the reason I bring it up, Tim, if we're willing to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes circling around looking for that perfect spot, Tell the listeners what the real cost is on wasting time procrastinating with our retirement planning, because that is a real challenge that a lot of folks are facing these days, isn't it?
It is. And people, it floors me sometimes how they don't put a emphasis on retirement planning. I mean, this is, you get one at bat. That's it.
Yeah.
If you strike out, guess what? You're done. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be a sixth inning where you get to come up again. You're done. It's over. So it can be devastating for people that don't sit down and meet specifically with a retirement planner. We talk about this often, but let's real quick talk about there's a big difference in a financial planner and a retirement planner. Mm-hmm. Now, do I do financial plans for people? Sure. But I am specifically for retirement. That's all that we do. That's what Safe Money Retirement LLC was created for, is retirement planning. And it's a different type of plan for retirement than it is for the growth period. Yeah, not sitting down with someone and making sure that your retirement plan is the right plan for you. And when should you do that? You really probably should be doing that sometime in your early to mid 50s, because then if your retirement plan is 65 and we're sitting down at 55, that's absolutely perfect. That gives us 10 years to get you guaranteed growth or guaranteed income roll up or something for long-term care that's going to appreciate or whatever the heck it is that you need. That gives us a whole decade. And we're not dealing with anything that ever has to have any losses. We're only dealing with things that are going to have either guaranteed gains or gains based on what the market does, but it can't go down. So having a whole decade of that can make a massive difference in someone's final outcome by procrastinating. A couple of the things, though, that I see is a lot of times the challenges really aren't obvious to people. They don't really see what's happening because it's almost like you can't see the forest for the trees. It's kind of like that someone, they think, I was just talking to a client last week and I got on the phone with them and they said, well, I want to do this and this and this and this. What they said, could it possibly work? Yes, but I'd say there was about a 5% chance. And when I explained, well, yeah, we could do that, but he's like, oh, well, I didn't even know that existed. Yes, I know. That's why you need to talk to someone like me so you can hear all of these things that exist. So together we can make a plan for you, because there is a huge hidden cost for not knowing what's really out there and not being prepared. Also, waiting is going to lessen the amount of options that you've got. Like I said, if you're going to retire at 65 and you come to me at 55, brother, that gives us a whole decade. We may do one plan for that decade, or we may do 3 plans that's 3 years, and 4 years. I don't know what we're going to do, but it gives us 10 years to do it in. If you come to me at 64 and you're retiring at 65, okay, well, that gives us a year to plan, and, we'll get you a little bit of growth and whatever, but obviously it's nowhere close to what we could have done. Or even further, I've got a client that came to me that just put a sizable amount with us. He's 38.
Wow.
Imagine where he's going to be in 25 years, because he just put a sizable amount in something that no matter what happens in the market, he's not going to lose a penny. So by the time he gets to retirement age, he's going to be good. So that's one thing. I would say that one of the biggest regrets that I hear people say is, man, I sure wish I would have started this sooner, or really, I wish I would have known you 20 years ago.
Right.
I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago.
Sure.
Or my dad, I wish he would have known about this 26 years ago.
Right.
You said it just a few minutes ago, there's never too early of a time to start. And are there times where I sit down with people and I say, you know what, you're still so young, it's not quite time to do with me yet? Yes, I do. I just had one of those just last week or week before. The guy was in his early 40s and he was still really in the mindset of growth. And I kind of gave him just a little bit of, I basically said, do what you're doing. Once you get a little bit older, once you get close to your late 40s, maybe early 50s, reach back out to me, and that's when we'll start doing the retirement planning portion of your life. So that's real, but that's the biggest regret that I hear from people, is that they did not start soon enough, or they didn't know me soon enough, or someone like me. Imagine where a lot of people would have been before that crash of 2000, or even more recently before the '08 and '09 crash. If you had gotten where you were in '07 and then got out of the risk in the market at that point, where would you be now versus where you are? For most people, that's a dramatic difference. So, all of those things, procrastination can get really, really expensive when you're looking at retirement.
Let me ask you this too. When it comes to folks that you've experienced over the years, again, you've been doing this for a long time. Is it the delay? Is it caused by, is it fear? Is it confusion? Is it just the old excuse, well, I'm too busy? I love when you hear that, right? We're all busy, right? We all have a lot of stuff going on in our lives, especially these days. But is it one of those? Is it a combination? Does it kind of depend on, the age of the folks you're sitting down with, what they, say maybe they've been putting off, this planning process because of certain ideas?
Yeah, it's D, all of the above.
Yeah.
So I would say fear, because people are always afraid of making any change in anything in life. When you're just buying a new car, there's always the fear that it could be a lemon, right? There's always a little bit of fear with everything that you're doing. So I think fear does have a lot to do with it, which is why I set up this company the way that I did. There's no product that this company, Safe Money Retirement LLC, does not offer any products anywhere in the country that have any chances of losses due to a market event. None. So that's why I set it up this way, because you don't want to ever have to worry about that. But yeah, I think fear has a lot to do with it, and just, comfortable. They've been with their guy forever. I got a guy. Yeah. I got a guy. And that's cool. I've got a guy too. That's great. Okay. But again, making that transition, because there's a 95+% chance that your guy is not a retirement guy. He's a growth throughout your life guy. Now, might he have a few things for retirement, and might he say, oh, well, I ran this Monte Carlo simulation and you've got a 94.7% chance of success if you do this and this and this. Well, that's a 5.3% chance of failure, the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So, we need to make sure that you know what you're going to do, and what we do are guaranteed plans. These are guarantees from top-rated life insurance companies that are going to guarantee you whatever the income is, or they're going to guarantee you whatever the growth is, or they're guarantee you no losses, or whatever the benefit is. That's not where we're going with this, but making sure that you are in that kind of a plan at retirement versus one of those with all those sequence of returns risk like we talked about a few minutes ago.
Well, maybe you're tuned in today and you've been a little scared or a little nervous or maybe apprehensive, or maybe you're just using that excuse you're too busy to start planning for retirement. Well, as you heard Tim mention just moments ago, just worked with someone who's 38 years old and is already putting plans in place for their finances. And if you'd like to learn more, maybe you're still 5 or 10 years away, no time like the present to get on Tim Wood's calendar with Safe Money Retirement. And folks, if you want to learn more, you want to start that conversation today, keep this number handy, 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233, or online at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I saw an interesting article on moneywise.com recently, and it said if you're worried about not having $1 million before retirement, it's okay. You might still get there even after you retire. Now, they point out a new survey from Northwestern Mutual that says a lot of retirees are spending just 2% of their savings every single year. Now, at that withdrawal rate, assuming the market cooperates, your money could actually double. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on logic like this?
That sounds fantastic, but I don't know of anyone that can live on 2% of their savings unless they have got a massive amount of savings.
Right.
Even at $1 million, 2% is not a whole lot to live on. Mm. So I don't know. I haven't seen that article. I will say that for a lot of people, at least for now, Social Security still is picking up a good portion of the income that they need. Mm-hmm. Now, as most people know, there are challenges coming with Social Security that are going to have to be dealt with. And if they're not dealt with here in the next 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to have some issues. And I don't know who's going to deal with them, because it's kind of the third rail of politics, Social Security and Medicare. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but for right now, that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So, yeah, some people may be able to take 2%, and that's not necessarily, if they can do that, that's not necessarily a bad idea if you can do that. But what you could do then, what I would suggest is instead of leaving that money at risk and hoping, like you said, hoping that the market would allow you to double it, we could put you in something that guarantees you a very attractive rate for however many years you want. And if you're only taking out 2%, then yeah, you may very well wind up doubling your money over time because you might be making 5, 6, whatever percent based on what it is. Rates change every day, but based on what it is, yeah, if you're taking out less than you're making, then your money amount's going to go up. Now, the other thing we have to look at with that is because of inflation, spending power. So if you're not at least making as much as inflation, even if you've got money sitting there, if it's not growing at least at the rate of inflation, you're losing money. Mm-hmm. I have that discussion with people all the time. They're like, well, my money's safe in the bank. I don't have to worry about it. Okay, well, how much are you making? Well, I'm not making a whole lot. I only made 2.1% last year. Okay, and I don't know that these numbers are correct. That's not my point. But if inflation was 2.7 and you made 2.1, guess what? Your money didn't just sit there, you lost.
Right.
So making sure for that. Market conditions can outpace withdrawals in the right conditions. Again, that's why I would say we need to get you out of those conditions where you're at any risk in the market and get you into some sort of a product where you know how much you're going to make no matter what happens in the market. And then we determine how we want to withdraw. Do we want to just take the growth off of that? Or do we want to put it into a guaranteed income product? Or do we want to kind of do some of each? And last I'll say is the logic for what that article said makes complete sense, but it's not guaranteed.
Right.
That's the big thing. Is my company deals with guarantees. We want to make sure we get you into a product that's guaranteed, that you know what's going to happen in your retirement, because you do not want to take chances with your retirement. Again, you don't have a pinch hitter that can come up and save you. You get one at bat, that's it. We got to make sure that you connect, and we got to make sure you get on base and you're going to get to your target.
And that all starts with one phone call to Tim Wood and his team at Safe Money Retirement. Maybe you've been chasing that magic $1 million number, or maybe you've been hearing all kinds of different figures. You need to have fill in the blank saved until you have a chance to retire. And maybe it's been a reason why you've been putting off your financial planning. Well, don't let that headlines scare you. Don't let what happens in Wall Street and Washington dictate how you're going to shape your financial plan. Get on Tim's calendar today. And we mentioned it earlier in the show. Our first 5 callers to schedule that initial conversation with Tim. Again, there's no cost, there's no obligation. And Tim's even going to throw in a complimentary copy of his book. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. You want to learn more? You want to get a copy of the book? Pick up the phone. Get on his calendar now by dialing 423-873-SAFE. That's 423-873-7233. 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233. Or online at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I feel like we blinked and the show is already very rapidly coming to an end. But before it does, sir, the floor is once again all yours for the final word.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Hope everyone enjoyed the show today. I think we covered some really important things. That last story that we just spoke about, the being able to take out 2%, again, that could work with some people, but that's very rare. You need to sit down with someone and figure out exactly how much income you need, and then we can figure out what the percentage is and work at it that way. We started also, the very first thing we were talking about is diversifying your investments and getting out of that sequence of returns risk. And I talked about my dad and how important that is. You'll read more about that when you get a free copy of my book. And it is very important. Sequence of returns risk is one of the main risks we must take off the table. But I real quick want to talk about that middle story that we talked about really quick, which was procrastination. I think that's one of the problems that a lot of people have is, oh, well, we'll talk to someone like Tim next week, next month, next year. And before you know it, we're going to blink a few times, Kevin, and the Masters is going to be on again. I mean, that's just the way life is. So it's time. If you are anywhere close to retirement or you're planning for a retirement, it is time to sit down with someone that can help you make a solid plan so you know what's going to happen in your retirement. And even if it's 10 or 20 years away, that's fine. Start making the plan as soon as you possibly can so you can create your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.